Welcome back to my writer's room, everyone. I am Matt Wallace, YouTube's resident angry writer, and thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to come hang out with me here in my lonely, angry little writerly sanctum. I always appreciate it, I really do. Me not being naked on the vlog is brought to you as usual by our t-shirt of the day, which is, I got Macho Man Randy Savage repping today. Never a bad thing. It is January 9th, 2018. You can see Hamshackle Pig there. He's standing under a rain cloud because, oddly enough, it's pouring outside. Some much-needed rain for us here in Southern California. Life! Falling drops of life! Life everywhere! So how'd the big meeting go yesterday, Matt? Thank you for asking. This is very sweet. The big first team meeting for my new full-time writing gig yesterday went fantastic. I was... as usual, I was nervous over nothing, was very chill. I'm working with a team of very chill creators. We have a very awesome Scrum Master. They're very big into the whole Scrum thing. We were planning our next writing sprint, because that's part of the Scrum thing. You do things in sprints. New way to work for me. I'm adjusting to it quickly, I feel like, but it's definitely a new system. Fortunately, everyone has just been, like, beyond nice. Almost suspiciously nice. I keep waiting, because I'm so scarred from freelancing for so many years and working for so many horrible people that when I'm treated decently, I'm sure there has to be, like, some sinister, ulterior, like, plot going on. Like, they need to sacrifice an obese white man for some reason to some arcane god. And that's what they're, I don't know, but that's not what's going on. They're people very much like me. And we've talked about this. They've all been through those freelance ringers at other places, and they're trying to do something better at this company that I'm working for now. And I couldn't be happier. It's only my second week, but very happy, and I'm trying to put my best foot forward going forward and really bring my A game, because I like the environment, I like the people, I like the work. It's very creative. Brand storytelling is a lot more than advertising. It's really exactly what it sounds like, is you're creating and defining these different brands, and you're telling their story, and that allows me to do what I do best and what I enjoy doing, and actually get compensated regularly and fairly for it, which is a nice thing. So, but yeah, the meeting went great yesterday. Thank you to everybody who asked and everybody who's been following along with my my journey back into a full-time day gig, as it were. But it's going great. Part 1, Knocking Boots. So these are, or were, my wrestling boots. These are the boots that I wore to the ring every weekend night as a professional wrestler for many years. This is actually my second pair of boots. The first pair of boots I ever had, because I wrestled for almost 10 years, I got from J&M, which was like the company when I started out. They were patent leather, they were black, they didn't have like the embellishments that I had custom designed here with the flaps. But they were really cool boots, and I wore those and wrestled in them until the soles were coming off, and I was holding them together with tape, and it was just time. And these actually came from High Spots back in the day, and they did a good job. These are the boots I finished my career in. I walked a lot of miles and wrestled a lot of matches in those boots, man, and I enjoyed wearing them for many years. You know, I have a lot of fond memories. These are the boots I slammed against the motel room door when the Dirty Rotten Scoundrels filled one of my walking boots with a jar of onions. These were the boots I slammed against their motel room door and demanded they come out and face the music, and they didn't. They hid like cowards in their in their motel room, protesting, saying they didn't do it. I know they did it. These are the boots that I wrestled in Florida, and I flew all the way back, and I found a thumbtack in the sole of one of them that I had picked up walking to the ring after one of these really violent, hardcore, bloody matches where they had thumbtacks everywhere, and they got one stuck in my shoe. And I kept that thumbtack in a jar for many years. I just thought it was so crazy that I'd brought it all the way back with me from Florida unknowingly in the sole of my boot. I could tell a million stories about me in these boots, because that was a huge part of my life. And a lot of miles and a lot of years. and a lot of memories with them. And I like I said, I enjoyed wearing them. I enjoyed being a pro wrestler. And I haven't worn them in almost 10 years now. Wow. I did not, that actually hit me a little bit. Haven't worn them in almost 10 years now. And when I stopped wearing them, at the time, I really felt like all I was giving up was a profession and a lifestyle that comes with any profession, any career. But that's what I thought I was giving up at the time. And I didn't think about it too much more deeply than that, although I did think about that part deeply. It was not easy. Something I had been working at every day for 10 years, I decided I wasn't going to do it anymore because it wasn't going where I wanted it to go. So I walked away from it, and I said, I'm giving up this profession, I'm moving on. And as I grow older and I go through my daily life now, and I think back on those times, I realize I gave up a lot more than a profession when I stopped wrestling. I even gave up more than a lifestyle. I kind of gave up the person I had become. And there was a lot of baggage with that I think it was good that I let go of it. Because a lot of it was not stuff that would serve me well now. And I'm going somewhere with this, so just trust me, this isn't just random nostalgia. But one of the things I loved about being a pro wrestler was I liked being a tough guy. I really did. I was not a tough kid. That's why. I was a fat kid. I was bullied mercilessly as a kid, all the way into my teens. I was afraid of everyone and everything all the time. I was a huge crier. I'd cry at the drop of a hat. I was a nervous, scared, traumatized kid. I was not a tough kid at all. I had dreams of being a tough kid. I had dreams of what I would do to all these people who bullied me if I was a completely different person. And when I got older and I started training to wrestle and I became a wrestler and I gained more confidence, I enjoyed almost kind of this, living it every day, but it was almost kind of like fantasy role play for me. I enjoyed the role of a tough guy. And I found that I was actually quite good at violence. I'm not a violent person naturally. I really don't think I am. If you get me really drunk, I don't get angry. I just get very silly and laughy until I get sad and weepy. And that's like my spectrum as a drunk. I'm not, and I think that reveals a lot about you, is the kind of drunk you are. But I'm not a violent person. I just happen to have a facility and an aptitude for it. I was very good at it. And combining that with, this fantasy role play of being the tough guy I always wanted to be, I'd fight a lot and I would impose my will on people, and I enjoyed doing that. And it was okay at the beginning. It was okay to kind of flush those demons of my scared, bullied youth. But I took it too far, as people do with most things. And it stopped being a healthy outlet and kind of a fantasy roleplay thing and became a really defining personality trait, and not a good one. It's not good to go around life angry and looking for a fight all the time. That's not a good thing. And that is something I also gave up when I stopped wrestling. And I moved to Tennessee, and I was living with my mother back then, and kind of reassessing not only what I wanted to do in life, but who I wanted to be. And that was when I really kind of started the road to who I've become now. And again, that's 10 years. 10 years since I took off these boots and put on a new pair of shoes and walked down a new road, and I've arrived at where I am now. But that was something I gave up. And I was reminded of this this week during a very specific incident. Part 2, the $100 air from Baja. So I'm at the 99-cent store the other day, and I fill my cart with somewhat questionable but very reasonably priced produce. 99-cent store, great place to get sauces. Get a lot of sauces there. Sriracha, soy sauce, all your basics. It's a good place for it if you have one near you. Not to be confused with the Dollar General. They're kind of bastards, but 99-cent store, a whole other deal. They actually sell groceries. Anyway, this has nothing to do with anything. So I fill my cart with questionable but reasonably priced produce. I go to the only checkout line that's open, and it's about 3 or 4 people deep. At the head of the line is this middle-aged gentleman who has yet to let go of the clothes he was wearing when he was really into hip-hop in the 90s. had the hoodie and the hat and the heavy jewelry. It was a white guy, by the way. I just realized that could come across very wrong. That's what stood out to me about him, was he looked very like the kind of food court mall gangsta white kid from the 90s, but all grown up and just has not let go of any of it. And he was trying to pay for whatever he was buying with a $100 bill. And the 99-cent store, at least the young lady at the register, did not have change for it and was having trouble. They were having trouble coming up with change. And he was very irate about this. And it couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 minutes it took for like the manager to sort him and get him on his way. But in that 3 or 4 minutes, he really started to get irate, and he was talking to us, the rest of us in the line, and saying how, well, it's going to be an hour, folks. They can't change my $100 bill. You know, I try to pay with a check, but I'm from Baja. I don't know how that would work out, which is how I know he was from Baja. He was just really, he was being an ass. He was like a giant toddler throwing a tantrum. And the more he went on, the more I kind of sunk down against my cart and just tried to tune him out. And as I was doing this, I noticed other people in the line looking at me, and it's a look I'm very familiar with. I get this look often in these kinds of situations, which is, you're a large, intimidating-looking guy. Surely you'll say something to him. And that's not an unreasonable expectation in certain situations. In this situation, however, I wanted no part of this. I just wanted to let him throw his tantrum, get his change, and get the hell out of the store. And it had nothing to do with being afraid. I'm not saying I'm like a huge badass, but I don't have that fight or flight fear response to these kinds of situations, or like awkward social situations. I don't have that. I don't have the thing where I won't tell someone in a movie being loud to shut the hell up, because that's a courtesy thing and it's affecting my enjoyment. But in this situation, it had nothing to do with fear. It had to do with the fact that he wasn't being physically threatening towards anybody. He wasn't presenting any kind of physical threat to anyone. He wasn't being even directly abusive or rude to the cashier. He was sort of like speaking on the side to her, mostly to the rest of us. He was being obnoxious, but he wasn't being threatening and he wasn't being abusive. And the last thing that I wanted in this situation was to escalate it by providing him with like some kind of threatening alpha male source to play off of. You know, that was the last thing I wanted to do, was escalate the situation, because it was a situation that didn't need to be escalated. He was not presenting a direct threat to anybody, and he wasn't even being overly abusive or rude towards anybody specifically. He was, like I said, he was just like a giant toddler throwing a tantrum in the middle of the store. And parents out there will know that sometimes you just need to let them burn themselves out when toddlers do this, and tire themselves out, and then they're very passive and docile, and they go the hell to sleep. And that's what I wanted. And it's not an easy thing for me. It was hard to hunker down against my cart and tune this asshole out as he gets louder and more abrasive and more obnoxious. I wanted to tell him to shut the fuck up. I wanted to tell him to get over it, that this was such a minor occurrence in life that didn't require his sarcastic narration. I wanted to do all that, but there was no point to it, you know? Me, back when I, wore the wrestling boots, I would have been delighted by this situation. I would have used it as an excuse to probably throw hands with the guy, because it would have been a fun thing for me back then. And that would have been a stupid thing to do. It would have been a stupid, needless, unnecessary thing to do. And I'm old enough now and wise enough now to be able to assess these situations correctly and react correctly. And it's hard because, for one, you have those old instincts. For another, you have everybody looking at you expectantly, and you have that in the back of the head. Oh my God, they're judging me. They think I'm a coward. They think I'm afraid of this guy. They think I don't want to do anything. They think I'm one of those people that looks the other way. You have that in the back of your mind, and everybody worries about that, whether you can overcome it or not. So it was hard. It was hard to stand there and say nothing, but it was the right thing to do. And the manager did the exact same thing. He didn't rise to the guy's taunts at all, gave him his change, laughed it off, and sent the guy on his way. And that was also the right thing to do. He left the store. There was no incident. It was just a few minutes of having to watch an adult act like a giant baby, and it didn't affect anyone adversely beyond that. Part 3, the De-escalation Generation. So for a brief period, I worked with law enforcement and military, doing seminars and doing training in things like weapon retention and disarming techniques, suspect restraint techniques, everything I could port from having studied judo and catch wrestling and various other combat arts. And whenever I worked with cops or soldiers or whoever it was, I always put the emphasis on de-escalation. That should always be the thing. You're not trying to hurt someone. You're not trying to win. You're not. You can't make every hand-to-hand situation about survival. You're trying to de-escalate the situation. Restraining someone is about de-escalating the situation if it comes to that. And that was always a very hard principle to drill into a lot of these guys' heads. And you see the result of it a lot in the news. But that principle of de-escalation, I think, is more important and more prevalent now than it's ever been, especially in America. And the thing is, I don't ever blame anyone for getting angry or rising to argue with or yell at a troll or taking to the streets and marching to protest something that's wrong. That's not what I'm talking about. And I certainly, I'm not immaculate here. I have my moments where I submit to my lesser angels and we'll get into it with some asshole or something when I'm really pissed off. But I really feel like in an age where the literal president of the United States threatens nuclear war on Twitter, where that's a thing that happens, where we have a mass shooting epidemic and we have cops that still routinely gun people down with no provocation, just the climate online or like on Twitter, what you really see is a generation of people who do not know how to de-escalate a situation. We give in so quickly to our baser impulses and our anger and our frustration. And it's something that, like, I'm really, in the last few years, have been actively trying to work on. And again, I screw it up on the reg. I'm not judging anyone, but I really think if you're out there and you're angry, you need to reassess your response to people and assess the situations that you're encountering and ask yourself, am I only escalating this situation with my actions or with my words or with my attitude? And sometimes, honestly, there are situations where escalation is going to happen or needs to happen. But very rarely, honestly, when you get down to it, that is an extreme end of the spectrum response. Most things, most situations, physical, verbal, or otherwise, there are so many points before it gets to that extreme where there are opportunities to de-escalate things. And we suck at that. We really, really suck at that. And again, I absolutely include myself in this. As much as I've learned in my old age, and as much as I know, as much as I've been through, I still fail to properly assess and attempt to de-escalate situations that I could de-escalate. And that's something I'm working on and something I think we all need to work on. Especially if your perception of masculinity, like if you look at the situation I just described with the $100 error from Baja in the store, and you think, man, I don't agree with that at all. I think you should have gone up and stuffed his stupid hat down his stupid throat. That's a false perception of masculinity. Nine times out of the time, nine out of 10 times. It's something we're taught very early, especially American guys. We're given this really false sense of what masculinity is. Personally, I think it's much braver and takes much more control and much more will and much more strength to stand idle and let this blowhard burn himself out rather than escalate the situation needlessly to something that could have ended in violence. I legitimately do think it takes way more, if you want to call it masculinity, I think it takes way more of that as a guy to make that choice than to needlessly and wantonly escalate a situation that doesn't need to be escalated. And that's a perception I'd like to see altered for guys in particular, because we are in particular really bad at that. But it's a rule that applies to most people. You know, there are plenty of things to be mad about. There are things that there are fights that need to take place. But I really feel like on the ground for openers, we really need to assess better, and we need to de-escalate better. I think we need to be the de-escalation generation, or things are going to get so out of pocket that, you know, you can't de-escalate a post-nuclear strike. Like, it's too late at that point. Once the bombs drop, de-escalation is no longer an option. Everything that happens before that is an opportunity to de-escalate, is basically the point I'm trying to make. Not everything is a nuclear option, but it applies to all kinds of situations. So yeah, de-escalation is basically the main thrust of what I'm getting at here. Just food for thought. If you're out there, I think if you really think about it, you could probably think about multiple situations that happened to you just this week where everything I'm talking about would have applied. Please like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what you thought of the vlog. If you have a question, feel free to ask it. I'm also over on Twitter. Use hashtag Team Hamshackle, and thank you to Team Hamshackle for your continued support. I will be here all the rest of the week for you. Always here for you if you need me. I am Matt Wallace, YouTube's resident angry writer, and I will see you tomorrow.